I think that as personal trainers, we expect people to hire mentors because we expect our clients to pay us for their services. But I think oftentimes as personal trainers, we're also very like ego driven. And as coaches, it's almost like we have a hard time getting somebody else to help us, even though we're helping other people. And I totally get it, because as the online trainer that's listening to this, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are taking money for like business coaching and not actually delivering results. What is going on, fam? Welcome to the Change Lives, Make Money podcast, where we believe online training doesn't have to involve complicated funnels, paid ads, or even websites. My name is Brian Mark. I'm your host, and I'm more than excited to be serving you in this episode. So this episode, we're basically going to cover what caused me to get started in the online fitness coaching game. I think it's really important for those people that are kind of tuning in to know a little bit about me, about why I'm the one that's qualified to be bringing you this podcast. And by the end of this episode, I want you guys to get crystal clear on what your reason why is, so that you can kind of burn down all obstacles. Online training has been sold to us as this thing that's like really easy. You just got to like put up a Facebook ad or put up a post and you're going to get clients that are knocking down your doors. Unfortunately, that never happens. Online training is a lot of hard work. So it's really, really important that you get clear on your why. Why did you become an online fitness coach? What's causing you to be motivated to push through? Why do you have some of these bigger financial goals? Like, what's the actual impact that you want to make in the world? Because unless you're really crystal clear on why you want to do this, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up getting stuck. You're going to plateau and you're going to just give up. So my goal with this episode is to give you a little bit of a background, who I am, what I'm about, in hopes that it motivates and inspires you to go after some of the things that you want. So let's kind of dive in. And I actually want to like rewind the tapes of time to go back to, where I came from. So for me, I actually grew up without a lot of money. My family wasn't rich by any means. For me, I was always given hand-me-down clothes, and I wanted a better life for myself. But when I looked around, I just didn't really see it. I was born and raised in a trailer park, so and I'm actually really proud of that, because the values and the lessons that I learned from a young age were really pivotal. And when I looked around me, a lot of the kids that I grew up with had a lot more things than I did, like nicer clothes and bikes, and they were in sports. And I actually never had a lot of those things. So when I was younger, I actually used to steal a lot of things from other people, and I would steal money from places, and I would steal like I used to be into magic cards. I don't know how many people like listening to magic cards or do magic cards or Yu-Gi-Oh or anything like that, but I didn't have a lot of the things that all these other kids were having. So I learned to steal from a young age, because I thought that like if I just stole, then I could get some of the things that I want. My family always used to tell me that money didn't grow on trees, and I just wanted a better life for myself. So growing up, obviously stealing wasn't the job, so it wasn't the name of the game. So as I grew up, I kind of started getting into restaurant managing. So I started bartending, I was a restaurant manager, and I was doing a lot of fitness competitions at the time as well. And there was a lot of people when I was like restaurant managing and bartending that would always ask me questions. And those online trainers that are listening know that that's kind of how it gets started. Like as you're on a fitness journey, people just ask questions, and I used to just give away advice for free. But then I remember there's this one dude who actually paid me $200 cash for nutrition coaching and nutrition counseling, and writing that plan was actually the most fulfilling thing that I could have ever done, because it gave me a thirst. Like as soon as somebody paid me $200 for like a nutrition plan, I kind of realized that like that's kind of what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be an online fitness coach because I could get paid doing what I love. It was really exciting for me. And that was also the first time in my life that I realized that I could get some of the things that I want without I didn't have to steal, or I didn't have to be a shady person in order to get some of the things that I wanted. And that was, being an online fitness coach for me was the first time that I ever gotten something that I really, really wanted. And I was working really, really hard for it. So at the time, when I first started online fitness coaching, Instagram was pretty brand new. And back in the day, I did like a lot of like following and unfollowing every day. So I don't know how many of you guys have been around for a while, but there used to be apps that was called like Crowdfire and things like that, where I would literally like relentlessly follow and unfollow like 100 people per hour. I'd set timers following and unfollowing 100 people per hour because I just wanted to grow my online fitness business. I knew that there were people online that I could reach. I knew that I had a good message and I wanted to grow it, but I didn't know how to do it. And at the time, like after getting paid $200 for this nutrition coaching program, I was like, man, like I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I know that I wanna do this. So I would just follow and unfollow like 100 people per hour. And honestly, my following started growing like crazy. I started getting more messages every single day. my clients started to get more and more results. And with those results, I would just advertise my clients' results. More people would follow me. I'd get more clients. I'd advertise those results. And it's kind of started to snowball. The problem for me though is that like as I started to get better and better, I was working at the restaurant still. I was bartending. I was making decent money as a bartender, like $3,000 a month or so. Then I started making decent money online too. We're talking like $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And the problem was like I always knew that I wanted to be an online fitness coach. Like that was something that I really wanted. But I think on an internal level, like I felt like I didn't actually deserve it. And I felt like I couldn't handle it. Because as money started to come in, like all of these old beliefs from my childhood started coming up, like money doesn't grow on trees, and you can't get the things that you want unless you're stealing. And so like as I started to become more successful and as I started to help more people and I was doing some of the things that I want, I'd get more money, and then I'd always come up against myself and my own fear of success and feeling like I didn't deserve it. And I'd self-sabotage or do something that would hinder my progress and stop me from getting to where we wanted to be. So even though I wanted to grow an online fitness business, it's like I was always coming up against myself and I was always self-sabotaging. So at the time I was working for an Irish pub, and again, that was like super draining. I had a really strong passion for fitness, but at the time I was like serving up beer and chicken wings, and honestly it felt really out of alignment because I really wanted to help people change their lives, but then I was serving people beer at nights, and it was just like there was always this disconnect. And honestly, my family was really proud of me because at the restaurant I was doing really well, and they were promoting me. I was a manager, a bartender / manager, and my family like kind of thought that was the path I should go down, because you have to remember, like coming from a family where money doesn't grow on trees, like getting a management position was actually really big. So my family was really proud of me, and they thought that I should kind of stick it out. But I just knew that online fitness coaching was where I wanted to go. I had this belief, I had this desire, and those people that have been following me for a long time know that when I first started Aesthetic Nation, like I used to bleed Aesthetic Nation. Like I had my company logo printed out of my shirts, and it was all over my Instagram, and I created this raving community, and I just believed in it so much, and I wanted to make it work so much that I would do anything for it. So at the time, I was working at Jameson's, right? Making a little bit of money extra online. It was kind of a side passion, kind of a side hustle. I was competing. And something else that I'm going to kind of introduce is that I was actually dating this girl. Her name was, actually, I'm not going to tell you her name, but I was dating this girl. And in case she's listening to this, at some point listens to this, I was dating her, and the relationship was actually really good at the time. And me and her were making plans to go to Australia together, and we were going to live together. But I just knew in my heart that this like online fitness business was what I wanted. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that if I left for Australia, that the likelihood of me being successful at building it was really small, because my network was in Calgary, in Alberta. And so I ended up telling her that I didn't want to go to Australia. I actually wanted to stay in Canada, and I wanted to build this. And so I decided to stay. I just decided to stay in Canada. She went to Australia, and we did long distance for like 4 months, and it was brutal. Never do long distance. If you're listening to this podcast, a piece of information that you can take is like never ever do long distance, because it's just terrible. But I bought a trip to Australia. We were doing long distance, and right before the trip, we ended up breaking up. And my trip was non-refundable. And I had actually never been on a flight at this point in my life. Like I had never been on a flight, and I was going on a flight to Australia. So I had basically two options. I was still bartending, managing, making decent money online. I was going to travel to Australia, and I basically had two options. Number one, I could just bail on the trip, which would mean that I wouldn't get my money back for the trip, and I would just kind of be like stuck in Canada minus $2,000. Or I could just go on the trip and just kind of suck it up and see if like I could build that connection again and see if I could go see this person. But going to Australia wasn't refundable, so I actually decided that I was going to go. And I decided that I actually needed to go, because even if I didn't see her, I was still going to grow from it. But obviously, like being in Australia was really hard. I actually remember when I traveled there, I was supposed to see her, but we weren't speaking. So while I was in Australia, I was there for a week, and I basically like partied for a week straight to kind of like drown the fact that I wasn't seeing somebody that I loved. And I ended up saving up $3,000 in total for the trip. And that first week I was in Australia, I actually spent $2,000 of it. So there was like a lot of money that was just gone forever. So I was in Australia after a week, and after 1 week there, I was like, man, I just can't be here anymore. I got to go somewhere else. So I ended up booking a trip to Bali, and I flew to Bali for the first time off of that basically tragedy or experience or whatever you want to call it. So I flew to Bali for the first time. And when I flew to Bali, I actually only had $500 left in my bank. and I had 3 more weeks on the trip. So I basically had 2 options while I was in Bali. Number 1 was to be broke and potentially be stuck in a third world country because I had $500 and no money for food, and I couldn't, like, calling my family for money wasn't really an option because, like, it's not like we have like a lot of money just laying around. And the second option was to make money that I needed for the trip. The second option was to figure out, like, how the fuck I was gonna make money in order for me to pay for my trip. So I chose option number 2. And when I was in Bali, I took my business from, $1,000 per month, and I made $5,000 in the 3 weeks that I was in Bali. And honestly, after that, I just never fucking looked back. I was hooked. I was thinking to myself, like, yo, if I can make $5,000 while I'm across the world in Indonesia, then I sure as fuck can do that back in Canada, where I have access to all my resources. And since that trip, I've been an online fitness coach. So that was a few years ago. I think that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And basically after that, I came home and I quit my bartending job. I just told them, I was like, I'm done. I'm passionate about this online fitness coaching thing. I can make it work. I made a ton of money while I was in Bali, and I know I can make this thing work. So I spent 4 years crushing it as an online fitness coach after that. And the first couple of years were definitely a lot of trial and error, like a lot of kind of like me trying to figure it out, not sure what to do, and kind of like going back and forth and like the best way to online fitness coach. But 2 years, and it started slowly building, right? It was like 3K a month, and then it was 5K a month, and it was 7K a month, and I started making 10K a month. And once I hit 10K a month, like, I kept that run streak for 2 years straight, and I made over $10,000 a month for 2 years straight. In that time period, like, while I was making over 10K a month, I started like hiring other online fitness coaches to work for me. I started hiring mentors, and I kept helping people that were like in the gym quit their jobs and take their business online and work for me. And then I started thinking to myself, like, yo, like, if I can train my friends to quit their jobs and take their business online with Aesthetic Nation, then I bet you I can train other people too. And I bet I can do this at a larger scale for other online fitness coaches as well. So for the next few years, I basically built Aesthetic Nation after Australia. And then there came a moment when I kind of realized, it was August 2018. I was like, man, I'm just going to do this full time. Like, I'm just going to mentor coaches. I kind of got sick of like writing meal plans for people. Like, I got sick of like talking about how much broccoli you should be eating and talking about like why pizza isn't as good for you as chicken breast. So I just went all in on PT domination in August of 2018. So 5 years after I had been an online fitness coach. And in the last year, since August 2018, I've helped over 100 online coaches quit their jobs and take their business online so that they can help more people like I did, and they can make more money, change more people's lives, and make more of an impact in the world. So that's kind of the process. That's kind of like my journey, my little backstory, like how it happened for me. Is it actually happened out of like a lot of adversity? I definitely know that like I spent a lot of time trial and erroring, and even though like in 2013 when I started making that money, like when I made $200 from my online fitness coaching program, I felt like I definitely could have learned a lot faster if I would have like hired a coach sooner. But I was really stubborn, and I didn't actually hire my first mentor until like 2 years into the business. And that's honestly probably my biggest regret, is I wish I could go back in time and like hire somebody sooner so that I didn't have to go through like 2 years of trial and error and I could just get there faster. But I actually did end up hiring mentors. Now I work with like 3 different mentors at a time usually, and I just absolutely stand for mentorship, and I stand for coaching that produces results. And I think that as personal trainers, we expect people to hire mentors because we expect our clients to pay us for their services. But I think oftentimes as personal trainers, we're also very like ego driven. And as coaches, it's almost like we have a hard time getting somebody else to help us, even though we're helping other people. And I totally get it, because as the online trainer that's listening to this, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are taking money for like business coaching and not actually delivering results. So for me, like what I stand for, I actually stand for clients producing results. Like that's one of my biggest things. And that's actually why I wanted to create this podcast, because I want to give a lot of value up front. I want to give a ton of value up front. I want this podcast to be like straight value. I want you to be able to leave like after listening to this podcast and just be like, yo, like that was sick. Like I know exactly what to do. So that's kind of like my intention with this podcast. That's why I created it, because I want every single person that's listening to this to walk away with something, whether or not they work with me. So that's kind of my thing. That's what I stand for, and that's what I'm all about. So for me, and what you're going to be hearing from me and what you're going to kind of get from me is you're going to get value, straight value. So every single time that you come onto this podcast, that you tune in, I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that like I just bring it for you guys. I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that like I'm on top of it and I'm all in for you. Any questions you guys have, you guys can always ask me questions. But for me, I had to make a lot of mistakes. I had to fail a lot, and I could have saved myself a lot of time and been a lot farther in my journey if I had listened to somebody like myself when I was a lot younger. So online coaches come to me when they're ready to dominate the game. That's plain and simple. So my intention is to help you dominate the market if you're listening to this podcast. So thank you so much for tuning into the first episode. And just to be crystal clear, something that I want you to take away from this, because I want every episode to have a takeaway, is you need to be like really crystal clear on why you want to build this business and why it's so important to you. And in order to be successful in this online fitness coaching space, like you have to understand that it's going to be a lot of work and there's going to be a lot of sacrifice. And I think that something that a lot of fitness business coaches talk about is the fact that you can make easy money and if you just make a post and people are going to pay you, and that's just not the case. You really do have to be tapped into your why and know exactly like, what is it that's causing you to like be driven to this online coaching space? Like, what is it? Is it money? Like, are you driven by money? Are you driven by numbers? Because if you are, that's okay. Like, it's okay to be driven by money if that's what you're driven by. Are you driven by impact? Right? Is it for you? Do you want to make more of an impact on the world? Do you want to change more people's lives? Do you want to step up and step into your power and be able to help people and influence people on a scale that like you can't even touch with in-person training? Or maybe it's just freedom, right? Maybe you want more freedom. Maybe you want to be able to travel more. Maybe you want to spend more time with your kids or your loved ones or your significant other or your friends. But whatever it is, I want you to get really crystal clear on what your why is. And don't listen to other people and what they tell you about like why you should be motivated or why you shouldn't be motivated or like what the specific reason is that they think that you should do. Like, what is it for you? And to be honest, like for me, a lot of it is financial. Like I'm very financially driven. But I also am driven by a moral compass that like every single client that comes into my program has to get results. Like they have to. I have a 90% success rate in my program. And the reason I have such a high success rate is that even though I'm numbers driven on like the back end and I want to hit certain targets, I'm also like results driven on the front end. And I'm like, okay, like my clients are here. Like what can I do every single day that's going to step up and make sure that they get the product and the service and the promise that I delivered them in the first place? So you don't have to be driven by impact. You don't have to be driven by money. You don't have to be driven by freedom, but you have to find what drives you and you have to know what drives you. And if you know that, if you know what drives you, then you're going to be able to burn through all the obstacles that are going to come up along the way. So, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I really appreciate it. If you listen to the whole thing, you're a real G. You're one of the real ones. I absolutely love you. So, as my gift to you, what I'm going to be doing is if you're tuning into this podcast right now, and you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or anything like that, what I want you to do is I actually want you to take a screenshot of you listening to this podcast, and I want you to share it in your Instagram story, and I want you to tag @BMarkFit. I also want you to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever your platform is, and I want to let you know that anyone that leaves a review and anyone that subscribes to anyone that leaves a review and shares this in their story is going to be entered to win $1,000 cash. I'm going to be giving away $1,000 in the first month to anyone that listens, reviews, and shares it in their story. I just want to say thank you for listening. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is BMarkFit. You'll be hearing from me again soon. I hope you have the best day of your whole life and get really crystal clear on why you want to be an online fitness coach. So let's get it, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Boom! Fuck yeah. What's up, squad? So we got like 7 people tuning in. That's my jam. That's what I love. So I'm gonna save this, export as MP3, and that's a storytelling episode where I'm from. Sweet. So thank you so much for tuning in, squad. I got a bunch of you guys on here, which is super cool. So I'd love to know, like, what'd you guys think? Thoughts, feedback, concerns. Who we got here? I'm gonna come say what's up. So, if you're just tuning in for the first time, no lights in the background. If you're just tuning in for the first time, basically what's happening is I'm launching my podcast, and I've been like kind of procrastinating on filming the first episode for a little while because I think there's a lot of nerves around it. Like, it's a big thing for me, kind of like stepping into my power and like really owning it. But I definitely know that like I think that's like the biggest thing that I want to be focused on in the next little while is getting this thing launched. I feel like if I talk about some of the shit that's in my head more, that I'm just gonna give more people value, more people are gonna get awesome results, and I really am here to make the biggest impact possible. So now that my business is growing and I'm getting a team in place, I have more time to do things like this, like a podcast, so I really appreciate you guys watching. So who do we got here? I just wanna say thank you. Tammy, thank you for tuning in. Ashley, thank you for tuning in. Brady, thank you. Annie, thank you. Aaron, thank you. So this is exciting for me because I'm launching it and it's fucking awesome. So if you're following the journey, thank you so much. When it does come out, when the podcast officially does come out, I'll make sure that I drop all the information on my Facebook, so you guys can subscribe, rate, and enter to win $1,000, which is sweet. I just want to give $1,000 away for you guys tuning in. So, yo, thanks for following my journey this far. I really appreciate you guys. I'm just going to scroll through the comments and see if I missed anything. Hi, Brady. What's up? Thanks for waving. John, thanks for tuning in, brother. I appreciate it. Cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have the best Monday of your whole life, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.